The island is silent, but not empty. Mist drifts over tusks older than empires. Beyond the surf, shaggy giants move through Arctic light. They are mammoths, and this is their last refuge. The mainland world has already forgotten them. Yet here, time has stalled for millennia. The strange part is how long they lasted. Long enough to outlive whole human civilizations. Long enough to watch a warmer Earth closing in. And then, almost suddenly, they were gone. It is dawn on Wrangel Island. Frost whitens the sedges. Low clouds drag across the hills. The sea breathes below them. A female leads the herd inland. Her calves keep close. Their coats carry wind-blown salt. Their breath smokes in blue air. Each step presses dark tracks. The ground answers with a dull thud. They are not monsters here. They are herbivores, ancient and watchful. Their world is treeless and open. Grasses bend under Arctic gusts. Sedges fill the wet ground. Tiny flowers flash between stones. Summer is short on Wrangel. Every clear hour matters. The herd moves with purpose. Food must become fat before winter. A bull pauses above a ravine. His tusks catch pale sun. They curve downward and inward. Ivory frames his swaying trunk. His ears are small. Heat is precious here. Long hair ripples from his shoulders. Beneath it lies thick insulation. A hump rises behind his skull. It stores fat and water. His back slopes sharply. His silhouette looks almost unreal. Yet nothing about him is fantasy. Every feature fits the cold. His trunk pinches sedges neatly. Then it sweeps another mouthful upward. Flat grinding teeth do the rest. Grass is tough work. For mammoths, chewing is survival. Daylight means feeding almost constantly. The calves copy everything. They tug stems with clumsy trunks. One bumps its mother's foreleg. She barely breaks stride. Around them, gulls circle. Somewhere inland, a fox yips. There are no great predators here. No lions shadow this island. That safety changed everything. It let a tiny herd endure. But safety can be deceptive. Isolation is another kind of danger. To understand these animals, look backward, far beyond this island. Once, mammoths ranged across continents. Europe, Asia, and North America knew them. They crossed the mammoth steppe. It stretched wider than any modern grassland. Imagine cold without emptiness. Imagine a frozen plain alive. This was not blank tundra. It was a productive grazing world. Grasses, herbs, and sedges thrived there. So did giant plant eaters. Steppe bison moved in dark waves. Horses flickered across the distance. Reindeer traveled the margins. Musk oxen kept to harsher ground. And mammoths towered among them. They were icons even then. Adults stood roughly elephant-high. Some reached around 12 feet tall. They could weigh several tons. Earth had to carry that calmly. Their relatives still live today. Asian elephants are their closest surviving cousins. That kinship matters. Elephant behavior offers useful clues. Scientists compare bones and genomes. They also compare living elephants. So the old world sharpens. Shaggy shapes become plausible lives. We picture matriarch-led families. Evidence suggests mammoths likely shared that pattern. We picture young bulls wandering later. Modern elephants do that too. We picture tusks sparring in contests. Broken ivory hints at it. Still, some details remain uncertain. Honest science leaves room for mist. What is clear is this: mammoths belong to cold grasslands. When those grasslands shrank, trouble began, and it began unevenly. Around 15,000 years ago, climates shifted. Ice sheets retreated and seas rose. The old dry steppe changed fast. Wetlands spread across former grazing grounds. Birch shrubs advanced in places. Forests followed farther south. Food did not vanish everywhere at once. Habitat broke apart instead. That fragmentation is deadly. Large herbivores need room and continuity. Mammoths did briefly rebound in some northlands, then the pressure tightened again. Humans were part of that pressure, not the only part. People hunted mammoths in some regions. Even limited hunting mattered. A species already losing habitat weakens quickly. Extra deaths become harder to absorb. This is why simple answers fail. Extinction rarely obeys one villain. On the mainland, mammoths dwindled northward. Their map kept unraveling. Populations became patchy and isolated. Genetic exchange grew harder. Some survived in North America surprisingly late. Others held on in Siberia. Small island refuges bought time they did not promise forever. One refuge lay in the Bering Sea. It was St. Paul Island. There, mammoths lasted until about 5,600 years ago. Then, freshwater failed them. As sea levels rose, islands shrank. Lakes became fewer and saltier. The animals gathered at remaining water. Their own trampling worsened the damage. That story matters because it warns us. Island survival is fragile survival. But Wrangel was different. Wrangel lasted longer than St. Paul. When rising seas cut it off around 10,000 years ago, mammoths remained behind. Only a few. Genomic evidence suggests a bottleneck. The founders may have numbered about 8 breeders. That sounds impossibly small, yet the herd recovered for a time. Within perhaps 20 generations, numbers grew. The population may have reached a few hundred. For mammoths, Wrangel was generous. There were no human hunters there then. There were no rival grazers either. Food could support them. So 6,000 years passed, a blink to geology, an age to any herd. Think about that span. These mammoths lived when pyramids rose in Egypt. While Bronze Age peoples traded metals, mammoths still crossed this island. Deep time overlapped human history. That overlap feels unreal. It is also true. If you stood here then, nothing would seem prehistoric, only strangely familiar. They would smell like wet fur. They would sound like elephants in wind. A calf would still squeal. A mother would still rumble back. Would you have survived one winter here? Tell me below. Or would the cold defeat you first? Be honest. The herd reaches a stream. Hooves sink into black mud. They drink slowly and lift dripping trunks. Water shines on shaggy chins. Fresh water is life on islands. Lose it and options disappear. Wrangel's mammoths likely knew this well. Their movements followed food and water. Summer lets calves grow quickly. Winter tests every body. Snow can hide the grazing layer. Ice can seal it away. A bad season is not dramatic. It is simply unforgiving. And small populations feel everything harder. Every storm counts twice. Genetically, Wrangel's herd was unusual. Isolation narrowed its diversity. Older studies suggested a genetic meltdown. Harmful mutations seemed to pile up. That idea was partly right, but not in the simplest way. Recent genomic work changed the picture. Inbreeding alone probably did not doom them. The population stayed small but stable. The worst mutations were gradually purged. Mildly harmful ones still accumulated. Yet the herd endured for millennia. So why vanish at all? That is the island's great silence. No clear evidence places humans there then. People arrived centuries too late. That removes one suspect. It does not solve the case. Scientists now favor sudden stress. Something rapid may have tipped them over. Perhaps a severe climatic event struck. Perhaps freezing rain locked food beneath ice. Perhaps disease reached the herd. Perhaps a disaster hit too few animals. A tundra fire is possible. So is some other harsh accident. Notice the wording here. Possible is not certain. The final centuries are still shadowed. Fossils speak, but not fully. We do not yet have every answer. Science sometimes ends with narrower mysteries. Still, the outline is strong. First habitat loss, then isolation, then vulnerability. Mainland mammoths faced warming landscapes. Humans likely added crucial pressure. Island mammoths escaped longer. Small refuges delayed the inevitable. But delay is not rescue. Isolation trades one danger for another. A continent offers movement. An island offers walls. When food shifts on a continent, a herd can travel. On Wrangel, it cannot. When genes thin on a continent, newcomers may arrive. On Wrangel, none do. When disaster strikes a continent, survivors remain elsewhere. On Wrangel, there's nowhere else. The herd climbs a ridge. Afternoon light warms the lichen-gray stones. Below, the Arctic Ocean flashes steel. Above, cloud shadows drift like smoke. One calf stops to dust bathe. Another leans against its mother's flank. The adults keep feeding. Survival leaves little time for play. Yet there is peace here too. Extinction does not announce itself daily. Most days probably felt ordinary. That is the haunting part. They grazed, drank, rested, and moved. Life continued with quiet authority. No mammoth knew it was among the last. No species ever does. Even the final generation likely seemed normal. Cows were still born. Tracks still crossed the same slopes. Winds still combed their coats. Then, somewhere in those last years, the pattern broke. Recovery failed to follow loss. Maybe one disastrous season hit calves hardest. Maybe several poor years stacked together. Maybe disease found a genetically narrow herd. Maybe weather erased their grazing crust. Whatever happened, it happened to few. Few can disappear quickly. That is how the last mammoths likely vanished, not with spectacle, but with silence. A world-famous species narrowed to an island narrowed to none. Now only tusks remain, and bones in frozen ground. But bones can still speak. They reveal diet, age, injury, and kinship. Ancient DNA speaks too. It lets vanished families whisper again. From teeth we infer grazing. From isotopes we glimpse seasons and landscapes. From shorelines we track rising seas. From dates we watch the map contract. This is the real wonder. Extinction can be reconstructed from fragments. Not perfectly, of course, but enough to feel the loss. Look at this final herd once more. They are not relics now. They are mothers and calves in weather. They are hunger, memory, and movement. They are the last survivors of a long empire. Their kingdom became an island. And that island became a deadline. Nature can be patient, then sudden. We often imagine prehistory as distant. Mammoths challenge that comfort. They lived close enough to us for overlap. Our species saw their end. Not all of it directly, but close enough to matter. That nearness changes the feeling. Extinction becomes less abstract. It reminds us that great animals can seem secure until conditions quietly shift beneath them. It reminds us that size is no shield, nor endurance, nor fame. A species can rule ice-age continents, then fail on one lonely shore. And we, so recent ourselves, study the traces. We arrive after everything important happened. Humans have existed for a moment. The mammoth story lasted far longer. Before our cities, there were steppe winds. Before our borders, there were tusk trails. If you could met these last mammoths, what would have struck you most? Tell me below. And if you want more journeys into the lost worlds before us, subscribe and ring the bell. The island is silent now, but deep time still remembers.